The gap is estimated up to about 300 million euros. That is, if I can put it that way, the equivalent of both the VAT increase and the salary reduction as of the measures that we have that we had introduced or announced. It gives you a bit of a picture of how much room there is. Excises are 30% of our budget revenues and how important it is. We plan to continue working on that with representatives from these two industries, both on fighting what is showing hints of organized crime, as well as introducing more efficient systems in terms of following excise goods and making sure that we can keep track of them. The other one is clearly tax evasion that we have on multiple levels. I'm not going to belabor too much on all the individual measures that we're taking, but what you should know, the crux of it is reforming the way the tax administration, Poreska uprava, functions, and that has to do with the organization structure of it, but it also has to do with how we go about actually looking for frauds. There, I think we need to be much more analytical. We need to build the capability to know where to look and then be decisive about going after the biggest tax gaps that we have. And that's something that we have started to work on. There's going to be organizational changes through the end of the year already. And then there are several other, I think, quite tangible process changes for the beginning, for Q1 of next year, such as unifying the tax forms as well as introducing better fiscal registers. But as I said, maybe this is not a forum to go into detail on that.
And while both you and Mr. Prime Minister are still here, I would like to invite Mr. Kneginich to comment on this mentioned issue of gray economy. Currently, it is pretty uneven playing field between the compliant companies and those working in the gray area, isn't it?
On the gray economy today, as a Foreign Investor Council, we see around 30% of the total economy is in this gray area and has a tremendous impact on the business environment in Serbia. This impact is seen from, let's say, two perspectives. On one side, we have a fiscal issue. We do not collect, as a government, we do not collect what we should collect. On another side, this kind of gray economy story doesn't really help foreign investors to come to Serbia and to invest in Serbia. Therefore, we have a double effect, and this double effect definitely will not move us further on, I mean, in coming closer or to become recognized as a country where everyone is willing to come and to invest. Therefore, on the side of FIC, we have a triple role. On one side is to bring and to help the government in realizing in which area we have an issue. On second point is about working together on this, and on third point is as well to stay close to this issue and to be some kind of watchdog and reminding the government about what we promise and how to tackle this issue in the future. Today we are talking about few hundreds of millions in grey economy. On top of that, there are several businesses heavily impacted, like tobacco industry or oil industry or construction materials industry. Therefore, FIC representatives are all over the place, and when you look at the GDP, we have 130 companies in FIC, bringing 80% of the GDP and employing 95,000 employees in Serbia. Therefore, as a FIC, we are impacted. On another side, we are more than willing to help government in all processes linked to the grey economy.
Thank you. Since Mr. Prime Minister and Mr. Finance Minister have to leave earlier, I would just like to ask Mr. Dačić, in London you did your best to attract foreign investors. What is your message to this audience?
Pa pošto kad sam stigao u London, bio je najveći uragan u posljednjih 20 godina. Ali London je preživeo. Otvorio sam dan na londonskoj berzi i berza nije krahirala. Što znači da za Srbiju ipak ima šansi. Zaista verujem u Srbiju. Evo, to je, vidim ovde Maju Piščević iz Američke komore. Oni su smislili taj slogan kad sam išao u postu u Americi, isto biznis povodom. I ja stvarno verujem u Srbiju. I mislim da cela naša vlada je posvećena tome da zaista imamo šanse. Ovo je šansa generacija, ne generacije, generacija. Imali smo dve istorijski propuštene šanse. Prva je posle Dejtonskog sporazuma, druga posle 5. oktobra. Obe su šanse propuštene. Pre neki dan je bila neka isto konferencija i sada, da se niko ne naljuti, ja volim sve naše zemlje u okruženju, naravno one s kojima se razumemo i dobro se slažemo i u muzici, kao što je Bugarska, ali bio je moderator Bugarin i kaže on na sastanku, na početku, kaže, bio je 99. ovde i bilo je bombardovanje i on ne može da zamisli kako 14 godina posle bombardovanja Srbija je kandidat za člana Evropske unije, da je to veliki napredak. Onda, pošto sam se ja obratio prvi, ja sam onda rekao da me je neko pitao 90. godine da će Bugarska da bude članica Evropske unije prije Srbije, ja bi se smejao. Ali to je realnost. Mi kasnimo i zato ja sam siguran da vi koji ste ovde verujete u Srbiju. Samo vi budite taj magnet za dodatne strane investicije, a vlada je tu da pomogne vama i da pomogne da se dođe do rešenja koja najviše odgovaraju privredi. Slobodno predlažite. Sva vaša udruženja otvorena su na vrata i vi to znate. I koristite to. Ja mislim da i vi ne koristite dovoljno te mogućnosti koje imate. Tako da vam se zahvaljujem i doći ću i sledeće godine.
Thank you very much.
A sad moramo da idemo, dolazi direktor Gazproma, odnosno ne znam da li je predsednik ili direktor Miller oko Južnog toka, tako da to je veoma važna investicija i nadam se da će uticati na rast GDP-a.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Finance Minister, for joining us today and for contributing. And I hope that Mr. Radulović and Mr. Ružić will stay with us. Can I, gentlemen, invite you to provide a few more comments on the already mentioned labor law. Mr. Bekefi, the labor regulation in the White Book is marked as an area where there was no progress in the past 12 months. How do you see the announced change of labor law? There are two key remarks there: labor flexibility and cutting labor-related financial burdens.
Yeah, the FIC have been advocating changes in the labor law for many years. Now, with the recent changes and also with the positive statements that we hear today, the FIC is looking forward to see how these intentions will be translated into actual implementation, into laws, bylaws, and then how this will be rolled out across Serbia. So I think next year when we are back together here, we'll have a lot to talk about. But we are certainly on the same page as the government, and we are looking forward to see how these changes will happen.
Minister Radulović, you announced recently not only the changes in labor regulations, but also the law on bankruptcy, the law on privatization, and the law on planning and construction. You promised that these bills will pass the parliament by the end of the year. How will they change the business environment in Serbia? And perhaps I should get a little bit closer to this side.
Well, let me start with the building permits. It's supposed to streamline the process, reduce the discretionary decisions on the part of the government. As I'm sure you know, those are and were the sources of corruption. So make the whole process much simpler so we can unlock the potential of the construction industry. I think we've made a lot of good decisions to simplify the process, and the law has been, the draft is there, the government is looking at it, and I expect it to pass the parliament by the end of the year. The other two laws, privatization law and law on bankruptcy, we have this huge issue with 153 companies that are in restructuring. The World Bank calculated that they cost us on an annual basis $750 million. For the country of the size of Serbia, that's a huge hit, and we just can't go on like that. They are getting money through subsidies, they are getting money through the Fund for Development, they're not paying their bills. I mean, it's a huge, it's like a cancer in the fabric of the market. So we have to resolve that issue. The government took on the responsibility to resolve the status of the companies in restructuring by end of June of next year. So the law changes are designed to actually help the process and allow us to get this done in a timely manner. There are some changes to the bankruptcy code that are very important, I believe. One is that, let me make a step back. We ran a fairly unsuccessful privatization, and the Prime Minister talked about it a little bit. Instead of developing the good core businesses that were privatized, in a lot of cases we have new owners/managers set up in offshore companies through which they extracted value out of the businesses. That in addition to that took a lot of loans, burdened the business, and then used those loans for other purposes than developing the core business. So they got even the banking sector into problems. Our NPL officially in banks is 22%. In a lot of banks unofficially it's over 50%. It's a significant issue for the economy. So one of the changes in the bankruptcy code is that all the claims of the linked entities and the companies that are linked to the owner are set in the priority at the last level. So other creditors have to be paid first before they would get any money from the bankruptcy estate. Basically, they are put in the same level as the owners of the company, and we believe that's how it should be. Another issue is that we are resolving is the issue of the minimal wage and the pension contributions for the workers. The law now stipulates that they have the highest priority, and it's not just for 1 or 2 years, but for all the years that those were not paid. We want to send a signal that you cannot avoid not paying the salaries, and that even the bankers, as well as other creditors, have to take care of that and ask their companies whether they are complying with the laws. We believe that framework, together with the labor law and the construction law, which also solves, I believe, finally the issue of the land usage rights, that these 4 laws as a package is going to allow us to resolve this huge issue of the companies in restructuring. And if you look at the measures of getting the deficit in check, that is probably the most important one structurally to get our deficit in line so that we can have a sustainable and stable budget in the coming years.
Thank you. The EU is now in the picture, Mr. Ružić. In its annual strategic document released at the same time as the progress report for Serbia, European Commission stresses the importance of economic criteria in the future enlargement process. What will be government's response to that new reality where stable and continuous economic growth emerges as one of crucial preconditions to continue the Euro integration process?
Ja pre svega moram da kažem da mi tu praktično imamo jednu mantru u vezi sa procesom evropske integracije. I ono što je odgovor na vaše pitanje, to su 2 reči, dakle konkurentnost i stabilnost ekonomskih prilika u zemlji. Sam proces evropske integracije ne trebamo sagledavati kao cilj ili isključivi cilj, već kao sredstvo koje će dovesti upravo do toga da i u pravnom, ali i u ekonomskom smislu dosegnemo taj kriterijum koji je potreban. Ja ne bih rekao da ovo naravno jeste novo doba procesa evropske integracije, ali bih također rekao da mi već duži vremenski period upodobljavamo svoj zakonodavni okvir upravo kako bi bio u funkciji ostvarenja tog ekonomskog kriterijuma i naravno postizanja stabilnog poslovnog ambijenta, uz stabilne makroekonomske pokazatelje, što je naravno posao i ove vlade i mojih kolega ministara koji su ranije govorili, ali također pored tog aspekta mislim da imamo šansu da u periodu do punopravnog članstva u EU još praktično ponudimo povoljnije uslove zbog našeg interesa kao države i interesa naše ekonomije od onih naravno koji postoje u EU, ali opet da budu kompatibilni sa evropskim zakonodavstvom. Što se tiče same EU i tu je, pošto svi volimo da govorimo o EU, a niko ne govori o onim konkretnim benefitima koji dolaze, dakle na raspolaganju nam stoji i finansijska i tehnička pomoć kako bi dosegli tu, da kažem, taj nivo konkurentnosti privrede. Da ne pomenuo bih samo programe poput programa CIP, naravno podsticaj malim i srednjim preduzećima, kao i realizacije zajedničkih infrastrukturnih projekata na kojima se radi sa državama u regionu i to je samo jedan od elemenata tog mozaika, a u ekonomskom smislu jedan od pokazatelja ili vodiča uopšte u postizanju kriterijuma konkurentnosti je naravno Sporazum o stabilizaciji i pridruživanju koji je praktično stupio na snagu 1. septembra i ovaj sporazum nam zaista pokazuje sve te benefite, jer kada pogledamo ko je nama najveći spoljno-trgovinski partner, naravno radi se o zemljama EU, skoro 64% je orijentisano na EU i za prvih 7 meseci, ako se ne varam, a imam ovde podatke, u ovoj godini, dakle, pojedinačno smo najviše sarađivali sa Italijom, Nemačkom, Rumunijom i Slovenijom. I to je, mislim, dovoljan pokazatelj da znamo šta nam otprilike sama tranzicija našeg društva i cena koštanja te tranzicije donosi u smislu određenih benefita. Naravno da je Vlada Republike Srbije zaista privržena i orijentisana da ostvari sve ove ciljeve i da ostvari taj kriterijum na kome se radi naravno kontinuirano.
Thank you. Mr. Knjeginjić, how does that EU factor really changes the business landscape in Serbia?
How it will be? It is very difficult to say. I mean, we have a lot of optimism here, and we are speaking about that EU is going to bring this and that. I would say that it is very, very nice to have this momentum and hoping that EU would bring by itself nice environment. Analyzing the current stage of Serbian economy and level of development, definitely we are going to attract many foreign investors, and on another side as well, many local players would interact on different way on those opportunities. But I have to say that despite the fact that there is a lot of nice things about EU, as well there is a huge responsibility on our side. We are very quick in, let's say, or quicker in adopting the different laws, but when it comes to the implementation and to be strict and to make sure that whatever we agreed stays alive, we are not good in this part. Therefore, EU integration will bring much more responsibility. We see in surrounding countries like Romania or Bulgaria that being part of EU it doesn't mean in reality better life next morning. Therefore, on that side, we expect much more that we have to do. The final outcome should be the overall increase of Serbian competitiveness in attracting, in doing high-tech side of the business in any area. And by doing that, definitely we can help local society and community. But nothing is given and there is no promise, meaning that we have to really work hard. And FIC, again, Speaking about the FIC, FIC is definitely, because we are representing foreign companies, bringing a lot of know-how and a lot of knowledge-based. We invest a lot in people, and I think that that's people corpus is extremely important for us to move forward. Therefore, as much as we invest in people, we have a brighter future, and vice versa. That's the message.
Thank you. Mr. Radulovic, in the past decade, some foreign investors have been attracted to Serbia by state aid and various subsidies. Many others say that instead of that kind of help, they hope for less complicated administrative procedures when they decide to start business in Serbia. What happened or what happens to so-called regulatory guillotine?
Well, we just, with these 4 laws that we announced and that are in procedure at the moment, that's just the first step. I mean, there are many other things we have to do to make the business climate work better, and the regulatory environment to be pro-business and simple. I'm sure you all know of that example of that company that sold jeans in the United States over internet, and the problems they had in doing so, and he at the end had to sell his business to a Croatian business because the regulation in Serbia prevents that kind of business from operating. I mean, any kind of internet business has significant problems. So that's, for example, one area that we will focus on next, together with other recommendations from the White Book as well. Within the Ministry of Economy, I have an advisor, special advisor, Dusan Vasiljevic, who is running the regulatory reform part. So we will go through all the recommendations, not only by FIC, but NALED as well, and other business organizations. We have to make the business climate in Serbia better. We have to make the regulatory framework easier, pro-business, and that will, we believe, give us growth. As I mentioned, we do believe that the best way to attract investors is to make that environment, regulatory environment, work in Serbia for domestic businesses, and that's the best way to attract the foreign businesses as well. The programs we had so far, I don't think we will continue in such fashion. I believe that the focus will be different, and you'll see that in the budget.
Okay. Mr. Orphanodakis, the FIC was active, took active part in this project, Regulatory Guillotine. The White Book also insists on cutting administrative barriers in order to create better business climate in Serbia. How important is that?
Actually, it's very crucial and very important. And what we hear from Mr. Radulovic is very encouraging. Guillotine projects should be revived, and the government should use the recommendations made in 2009 and put them in action. I mean, in 2009, government did roll so-called regulatory guillotine, which gave partial results by simplification or cancellation of certain procedures. I mean, I could illustrate this with a positive example. Today, for company registration, you don't need to go from one county to another because there is this so-called one-stop shop. In one place, you can register a company and get tax identification number, which is a significant improvement from the perspective of investors. FIC has sent to government more than 100 proposals to amend the regulations in the area of tax, customs, labor regulations, and telecoms. A lot of FIC proposals are waiting to be implemented, and this costs Serbia's attractiveness for new investments. Government actually adopted 60% of our proposals, but implemented half of them. I mean, let me share with you some background info on the FIC involvement on that. Most of FIC recommendations cover taxes around 70. Positive examples from that area are changes in transfer pricing. In customs, we noted positive trends via introduction of simplified customs procedures. And in labor regulations, almost none of our recommendations were adopted, and one of the few is related to the streamlining of procedure for travel instructions. In telecom, most of our recommendations did not yield results, and companies still face issues with certification of products where the process is very complex and non-transparent. I mean, moving onwards, we believe that related proposals, not only ours, but from all other associations, should be reviewed and used to make quick wins and cut unnecessary cost of doing business in Serbia. Also, guillotine principle needs to be broadened to upcoming legislation as well to make sure that new laws are business-friendly and do not inflict too much administrative burden.
Thank you. We are about to wrap up this discussion. Minister Radulović wanted to add something on this topic, and I also have a...
We take that regulatory reform very seriously. So the Ministry of Economy took it upon itself to drive the process and get other ministries included to really have an integrated approach to solving the problems. One issue that I forgot to mention, which is also in your book, very important, are inspections. What we have today just doesn't work. One inspection I have is the tourist inspection, and we reviewed how they do business, and essentially they inspect the complying businesses over and over again, with no schedule, with no plan of how to do it, and there are other businesses that are never checked, for example. So we will put in a system that's randomly going to select who's going to be checked. There will be, we'll then look at whether we can link other inspections so that they are done at the same time and not to waste businesses' time over and over again. I mean, every next day you can get another inspection from another ministry. So that example and all the others, I mean, we take it upon ourselves to drive that forward. We are fully in agreement that that's the key component in making the business climate in Serbia work.
And Mr. Radulović, I would like to give you the opportunity to wrap up. Recently, you, at a similar presentation, you invited foreign investors to come up with ideas, if they have any, how to solve the problem of about 800 companies that are enlisted with the Agency for Privatization. Any feedback, any message for the audience here? And do you really think that you could complete that task as you said by the end, mid-2014?
First, I have to correct you. I invited investors. I really do not care whether they are domestic investors or foreign investors. The rules are the same for all. Our fixation on just foreign investors, the ones that did not come yet, and I consider FIC domestic investors, although you have a foreign in your name. Once you start a business in Serbia, you are domestic business. And so the invitation is to all investors. We put the list of companies on the website of the ministry, 153 plus 419. In total, 100,000 employees which really don't have a real job. So we are trying to find a solution for them. In addition to that, we have 911 companies in which the government has some stake. Then we have 545 companies that are in bankruptcy, socially owned companies. And it's a huge portfolio, and ministry can't solve that. It can only animate the whole society, get all the investors, business people, everybody to get involved in the process of trying to find a solution for them. So what we are doing is we will clean them up. They will be clean of debt and liabilities, and as such will be offered to investors to buy. I think we received about 300 applications already, so I believe the process is working. We will increase the awareness. Those ID cards that we put on the website, which contain the basic data about assets, liabilities, buyers, suppliers, is a huge step forward, and we are getting a lot of positive feedback on it. They're not of a quality we want to have. However, we made the first step. I mean, we have to win this battle.
Minister Ružić, what do you expect? How could this group help Serbia in the future, in the process of continuation of the process of euro integrations?
Pa pre svega, ja moram da kažem da je ovde najvažnije da imamo jedan proaktivan odnos, interaktivan odnos. Mislim da je poslovna zajednica jedna od, da kažem, ključnih ili jedan od ključnih aktera u ovom procesu i zato ta interakcija mora da se svede ne samo na međusobno informisanje, već i na uključenost i poslovnih udruženja i poslovne zajednice i svih zainteresovanih strana u sam proces i pregovaranja.